ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noah Layden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noah.
On 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Wednesday, April 23rd. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today. Another beauty of a day on the way, high 73. Tonight and overnight clear, low 55. And then Thursday, sunshine, high 73. If you are walking out the door with us right now, 53 and clear in Oyster Bay out on Long Island. It's 55 and partly cloudy in Cranberry over in New Jersey. And it's 57 and clear right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
The goodbye to Pope Francis underway. George Santos says he's not ready to go to prison. A Princeton University student goes missing. Bears are waking up and running through neighborhoods. And prayers are answered at a Catholic school set to close in the Bronx. Let's get into it at 5:01. Let's start with Pope Francis. Watching this as I walked in early this morning. All that is taking place in Rome as they move Pope Francis's body from a private chapel at the Vatican to the Basilica. So there'll be a mass viewing that it will get underway in just a matter of moments, in fact. Correspondent Ann Thompson is in Vatican City.
The body will be removed from Casa Santa Marta, where it is today, and it will be processed to St. Peter's Basilica, where it will lie in state Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's what we believe at this point.
Now, that is underway already. Francis's funeral set for Saturday at 4 a.m. our time. Meanwhile, cardinals from around the world gathering at the Vatican ahead of the upcoming conclave.
His funeral mass will happen at St. Peter's Square on Saturday morning. And after that mass, then he will be buried at the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. That is not here on Vatican grounds. It's elsewhere in Rome. It is a church that has a very special meaning to Pope Francis. It is where he would go to pray before and after every trip he made, and then most recently when he left the hospital.
That's where he'll be interred at St. Mary. Major correspondent Alice Barr, she's also in Vatican City. The cardinals, they're coming in. They make the final plans for the funeral and then, of course, this conclave that the whole world will be watching.
Pope Francis named more than 100 of the 135 cardinals who will gather to vote for the next pope over the next 2 weeks. That move to reshape the global church means the electors could be more likely to continue the path of reform, though there will be a traditionalist movement to course correct as well.
And there's been a flurry of activity. You won't be surprised to hear there's at the Vatican following the death of Francis.
While the faithful mourn, cardinals are at the Vatican going through details of the funeral now set for Saturday. Their first meeting since Pope Francis's death at 88, caused, the Vatican says, by a stroke and heart failure.
Okay, so now, of course, there are actually betting pools about who the next pontiff would be. In the wake of Pope Francis's death, the process to elect a new pope will soon begin, sparking speculation that an American cardinal in New Jersey may have a shot at this. Now, they've never chosen an American. The odds are not great that an American will be chosen this time, but apparently Cardinal Joseph Tobin, he's the Archbishop of Newark, is on people's short list to be the next pontiff. Now, again, they've never chosen an American. There's not any chance, not a great chance that they'll choose an American this time. But if they do, apparently it would be Cardinal Joseph Tobin. So, of course, everybody watching him yesterday as they had their own service in New Jersey in memory of Pope Francis.
Advance the weak and care for this world in which we live. The poor and the earth are crying out.
Now, Tobin was seen as a close confidant of Francis. He was named cardinal by Francis in 2016. As head of the Archdiocese of Newark, Tobin has been seen as a voice in the style of Francis. He's for the rights of immigrants. He's close with the LGBT community. An interesting guy. He's 72 years old. Apparently gets up every morning and does these weightlifting routines, described as sort of a character. I don't know a whole lot about him. We know a whole lot more about Timothy Cardinal Dolan, who apparently is not on anybody's short list, was last time when Francis was chosen. He also held a service for Pope Francis yesterday at St. Patrick's Cathedral.
For us as Catholics, this is a death in the family. We didn't call him Holy Father for nothing. We grieve that so many of you, our friends and neighbors, sharing that grief this afternoon means the world to us.
So Dolan and Tobin both flying to Rome. This is what we were told last night for the funeral, and to join the 131 other cardinals from around the world for that conclave. It becomes sort of like watching the election in November or the Super Bowl. Everybody wants to see who wins. Of course, their votes will be in secret. You know the deal. Black smoke means they have not come to a decision. White smoke means they have chosen a pontiff. Usually it takes 3-4 days. Some depends, sometimes shorter. But, of course, we'll be watching it all. And, again, the body of Francis moved to to the Basilica in Vatican City for viewing. That's going to take place today, and it'll go through Friday. The funeral, 4 a.m. our time on Saturday, and a slew of world leaders are going to be there, including the President and First Lady Melania Trump, along with the UK's Prince William. WABC News Time 5:10. Joe talking about this fire. It is a fast-moving wildfire in Ocean County, New Jersey. It burned through the night. There are about 1,000 structures they're worried about.
In about 10 hours after the fire, which is in the Greenwood Forest Management Area in Barnegat Township, was reported Tuesday afternoon, it had charred 8,500 acres. It's threatening more than 1,300 structures and prompted more than 3,000 mandatory evacuations in Ocean and Lacey Townships. Power to 25,000 homes may be out, turned off intentionally in many cases to protect firefighters. It also forced the closure of a 17-mile stretch of the Garden State Parkway. Officials say the Jones Road fire, as it's being called, was just 10% contained as of late Tuesday. Andrew Whitman, NBC News Radio, New Jersey.
5:11, let's go down to Washington. Health and Human Services Director Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announcing the ban of a number of artificial food dyes in the nation's foods.
And we're going to get rid of the dyes, and then one by one, we're going to get rid of every ingredient and additive in school in food that we can legally address.
So 8 petroleum-based synthetic dyes are on this list in a move that's been cheered by food activists. He's previously said, Kennedy, that he wants all artificial dyes phased out within the next 2 years. So he's going to go after other foods as well.
For those ingredients that we can't ban legally, we're going to start informing Americans about what they're eating. And we're going to try to work with Congress and the White House.
Yeah, so awfully interesting. We have not heard from the food companies that he's going after, but they'll have to use more natural ingredients now instead of those artificial dyes. 5:12. The president says China needs to come to the table so they can talk about these tariffs. He wants them at the bargaining table. He says the U.S. Could lose $2 trillion in trade across the globe because of bad tariff deals that have in place now. And he says that's why he's going hard after countries like China.
They're losing almost $2 trillion on trade, and those days are gone.
Now, the president says he's confident that America and China will eventually come to some sort of agreement.
My relationship with President Xi is great. It's been great for a long time. We've had a very good relationship, and I think we'll make a deal with China.
And the White House says they have more than a dozen trade proposals on paper that have been brought to them by other countries. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, talking to reporters yesterday, says the president says the U.S. is doing very well in respect to a potential trade deal with ultimately China, which is the biggest one.
These are proposals on paper that countries have proposed to the Trump administration and to our government.
And White House officials say they have met with about 36 countries just this week to discuss possible trade deals.
There is a lot of progress being made. We now have 18 proposals on paper that have been brought to the trade team. You have Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick, Ambassador Greer, NEC Director Hassett, and Peter Navarro, the entire trade team, meeting with 34 countries this week alone.
Now, this comes as the president said at that July deadline earlier this month from when these reciprocal tariffs will go into effect. Now, the ones against China in place, the other ones against so many other countries, there's this 90-day delay. And while we're talking finances, President Trump says he has no intention now of firing Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell.
No, I have no intention of firing him. I would like to see him be a little more active in terms of his idea to lower interest rates. This is a perfect time to lower interest rates.
Now, it wasn't clear that the president really has the power to fire the Fed chair. Over the last week, Trump had implied he could fire Powell if he wanted to, calling him a major loser and saying he's not happy with him. While speaking to reporters at the White House yesterday, Trump says he was never actually going to fire him, but he'd like to see him take more steps to lower interest rates. Powell, of course, is a fellow Republican. His term ends in 2026, and he has said he would not step down if Trump asked him to because he doesn't have to. It's not permitted under law for a president to fire or demote him. 5:14. Vice President J.D. Vance says the U.S. and India have come to terms on a roadmap for a final agreement on trade. Vance says President Trump has been criticized for starting this trade war, but Vance, who is in India, says these countries are coming, wanting to make deals.
He seeks to rebalance global trade so that America, with friends like India, can build a future worth having for all of our people together.
Now, Vance's visit to India comes after the U.S. hit that country with a 26% reciprocal tariff on goods. But those import taxes, of course, are suspended for 90 days, leaving time for negotiations to take place.
I think that our nations have so much to gain by investing in one another. America investing in India, and of course, India investing in the United States of America.
Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund, it is lowering its U.S. economic growth projections to 1.8% for 2025. Correspondent Brian Chung has more.
They no longer expect the global growth to go at a 3.3% pace. They're revising that down to 2.8% because of, quote, the unpredictability with which these measures, referring to the tariff policies in the United States.
Well, not yet calling for a recession in the U.S. The IMF's chief economist says the group now views the odds at 40% due to the negative shock of those tariffs.
63 trading days since Inauguration Day, the S&P 500 has fallen 14.5%. That is the worst start to a presidential term in the index's history.
Yeah, the IMF also cut back its global growth forecast to 2.8% from its previous estimate. 5:15, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Happy Hump Day. Good morning, Justin Elliott.
Happy Hump Day. Good morning to you, Noam Layden. Start here on the diamond out in Queens. Francisco Lindor had 3 hits, including an RBI single. And the Mets defeated the Phillies 5-1 for their second 6-game winning streak already this season. Mark Vientos delivered an RBI double in his return to the lineup, and Pete Alonso also had a run-scoring double for the Mets, who improved to 11-1 at home. They are tied for the best record in the majors at 17-7 overall and opened a 4-game lead over the second-place Phillies in the NL East. Griffin Canning gave up 7 hits in 5 innings, but limited the Phillies to 1 run and won his 3rd straight start. He struck out 5 and walked 1. 4 relievers combined for 4 innings of 1 hit ball to close it out for the Mets. Mets starters have gone 11 games without giving up a home run, the team's longest streak since April of 2014. Their starters haven't yielded a long ball in 12 home games this year, the longest stretch to begin a season in franchise history. Overall, the starters have served up only 5 dingers, the fewest In the majors, New York will go for a 3-game sweep of its NL East rival in this afternoon's series finale, scheduled for a 1:10 p.m. first pitch. The lefty David Peterson will start. For the Mets in Cleveland, the Yankees dropped their second consecutive game against the Guardians, losing 3-2, and in the process dropping the 3-game set after Ben Rice homered on the first pitch of the game for New York. Not much else came from the Yankees' bats, and Aaron Judge, he went 4 for 4 with 3 singles and a double, raising his major league leading average to .411 with his 12th career 4-hit game. Judge also has reached base in 20 straight games. Starter Will Warren held the Guardians to 1 hit and led 2-0 after 5 innings before allowing 2 singles to start the 6th and being replaced. Up next for the Yankees, a matinee today to complete the series. First pitch is scheduled for 1:10 p.m. from Cleveland, with the lefty Carlos Rodon set to start for the Yanks. And to the ice here, the Devils dropped Game 2 of their first-round playoff series against the Hurricanes. The final score 3-1 from Carolina, as the Devs now find themselves in a 2-0 series deficit. Jesper Bratt scored the Devils' lone goal, while Jacob Markstrom finished with 25 saves for New Jersey. The series now shifts north to Newark for Game 3 come Friday night. That is your Sports Dome, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:20. Let's go down to Florida. Florida State University students speaking out at the state capitol, demanding stricter gun laws days after that deadly mass shooting that left 2 dead. Senior Nathaniel Mizrahi is from Sarasota, says he was in the class across from the student union.
We had a giant window in the back of our class, which limited our space. So it left this more than 50 people to pack like sardines on top of each other and under each other, heads down, scared for our lives.
He says all state universities should have locks on their doors and train professors on how to respond to gun violence.
We built barricades that day with nothing but chairs in between us and the shooter. There were no locks on our doors. So instead, brave students stood near the entrance with more chairs to try and do anything that they could to stop a would-be attacker.
And as we've heard in so many of these mass shootings, people texting their loved ones.
I sat with one hand on my phone, frantically texting my family, and the other was holding my classmate's hand as tight as possible because she was having a panic attack.
Just awful. WABC News Time 5:21. Department of Education going to resume now collecting defaulted student loan debt.
The department announced collections will begin on May 5th, and borrowers could be referred to debt collectors or have money deducted from their paychecks. Student loan repayment requirements were paused in March 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Biden administration opted not to resume collections and attempted to forgive student loan debt in a program that was ultimately struck down by the Supreme Court. The Trump administration has indicated it would offer no such concessions to borrowers. I'm Brian Shook.
5:21 out to Phoenix, where juries returned a verdict in the murder conspiracy trial of Lori Vallow Daybell.
We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action, do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, guilty.
The so-called doomsday mom conspired to kill her 4th husband in 2019 with the help of her brother. Vallow Daybell was already convicted in Idaho back in 2023 of murdering her 2 young children and conspiring to murder her husband Chad Daybell's first wife. Her friends told prosecutor she embraces fringe beliefs. Maybe some of the issues here. 5:22. New charges have been filed now against a nurse accused of harming babies in a Virginia hospital's neonatal intensive care unit.
The newest baby added to the case, bringing the total number of infants she is accused of abusing to 5. 26-year-old Aaron Strotman was initially arrested in January in Henrico after several babies suffered unexplained fractures, prompting the hospital to close its NICU. WTVR reports that the new charges extend the window of alleged mistreatment by 2 years, with indictments involving 2 additional infants dating back to 2022. Strotman faces multiple counts related to the abuse of these infants, and the case is ongoing. I'm Katie Gray.
From Virginia, let's go down to Orlando. An investigation underway after an engine problem led to a fire on a Delta jet. Correspondent Tom Costello reports the flight to Atlanta was halted on the tarmac when the flames shot out of the engine before takeoff from Orlando International Airport on Monday.
As pilots quickly shut off fuel to the engine, 282 passengers began evacuating. but with fire on the right side that could only go down the left side emergency slide.
All crew passengers able to exit that plane safely during the incident.
Just a few hours later, another Delta flight declared an emergency, returning safely to Orlando after losing cabin pressure over Jacksonville. Delta apologized and reaccommodated all affected passengers.
There's been so many plane accidents, incidents, helicopter accidents. Aviation analyst John Cox was asked if we should be worried about the recent string of aviation problems.
The passenger concern is understandable, but it remains that flying is absolutely the safest way of moving from one place to another.
524, let's go up to Boston. Opening statements in the Karen Reed murder trial in Massachusetts concluding Reed accused of killing her Boston cop boyfriend, John O'Keefe, with her SUV back in 2022 after a night of drinking, an assertion her attorney disputes.
John O'Keefe did not die from being hit by a vehicle. The facts will show that. The evidence will show that. The data will show that. The science will show that. And the experts will tell you that.
Reed claims she's being framed for the killing and that her first trial last year ended with a hung jury. The trial expected to take about 6 to 8 weeks. Here's the special prosecutor who's going to lay out the case.
We are here today because John O'Keefe was killed by the actions and conduct of that defendant, Karen Reed.
But Reed's attorney says the state has no case against his client.
You'll learn that the Commonwealth has pinned its entire case on a brazen and a flawed assertion that is untethered, unconnected to the facts and to the evidence.
A case that is gripping Boston, by the way. 525, the Supreme Court is hearing a case involving parents' rights to opt their elementary school kids from classes using books that have LGBTQ characters or themes. Tuesday's arguments involved a group of Maryland parents who sued the Montgomery County School District after it eliminated the opt-out program.
I do believe that they're going to rule in our favor. This is a majority issue. This is basically restoring the rights that parents have had in Montgomery County.
That's parent Grace Morrison speaking outside of a court. A lot of parents claim their right to exempt their kids based on religious beliefs was being violated, while the school claims the program has led to a higher rate of absenteeism.
A number of our kids are LGBTQ+. And the reality that we're talking about today is people want to erase us.
Although the case is centered in Maryland, the outcome could impact schools across the country. WABC News Time 526. Oklahoma County Sheriff's deputies have arrested a woman who allegedly sent fake legal documents to her jailed boyfriend that were soaked in illegal drugs. You realize how bad addiction is when people are doing that.
The mail that was sent contained fentanyl and methamphetamine on the sheets, about 6 grams of it.
So investigator says Jennifer Gross, 2 other people inside the house arrested. He says deputies found drug residue, paraphernalia, a meth lab inside this house. Inmates at the jail are provided scanned copies of all their mail, but legal documents are normally given right to an inmate. And this woman was smart enough to realize that, so she soaked it in drugs.
So the label on the front had been printed and then appeared to be glued onto it. It was false legal mail. They also have a jail phone call that stated that the stamp, the legal mail stamp that they had, that Jennifer Goss had purchased somewhere.
Yeah, now she's behind bars just like her jailed boyfriend.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam.
On 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 536. Good morning. It is Wednesday, April 23rd. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sun, clouds today. Beautiful, high 73. Tonight and overnight, clear, low 55, and then we'll kind of do it all over again tomorrow. Sunshine, high 73. If you are walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are. 53 and clear in Oyster Bay out on Long Island. It's 55 and partly cloudy in Cranberry over in New Jersey, and it's 56 and clear right outside our Midtown studios. WABC News Time 539. Joseph talking about this raging wildfire in Ocean County, New Jersey, has consumed thousands of acres, forcing some neighbors to flee their homes. The wildfire was reported, this was yesterday afternoon, at the Greenwood Forest Wildlife Management Area. That's in Barnegat. By last night, the flames had spread into both Ocean and Lacey townships in that county. In an update that came about 11 o'clock last night, the New Jersey Forest Fire Service say the blaze had grown to 8,500 acres, only 10% contained. So they started evacuating people last night.
I noticed the smell at first, and then when I went outside, it was all smoky. And I have a balcony, so I looked on my balcony, and I saw ashes. And then shortly after, they were knocking, the authorities were knocking on everyone's door.
Yeah, and firefighters telling us last night that about 1,300 structures are being threatened. And damage assessments were still underway because a lot of this was happening after dark.
I was home with my daughter. Smoke and everything was right in my backyard, in the woods, in the back. Everything was covered with black ashes. I see a lot of fire trucks, ambulance, police.
And again, that fire only 10% contained. They tell us there will be a press conference this morning where we'll get the latest details. Of course, we'll pass them on to you. New Real ID rules, those special driver's licenses you have to get onto a plane, they take effect May 7th. And as of May 7th, you'll either need that Real ID, that star on your driver's license, or a passport to board a domestic flight here in the U.S. And an analysis that was done by CBS News shows that New Jersey has the lowest compliance rate of any state in the country. So nobody in New Jersey is going to get those Real IDs. Count me in. I mean, I don't even have it on my head to go in and do it just because I've heard about the lines. So just 17% of New Jersey residents have these Real IDs. And when you talk to people in New Jersey, they say the reason they don't have it is because they don't want to get into line at the DMV. That's like the worst thing you could do.
I check every single day. There's no appointments.
No, I'm not traveling, but I just want to get it.
It should be quicker. I mean, people have to travel.
Now, if you have a passport, you can fly on that. No problem. But if you don't have a passport, you really will need this Real ID beginning May 7th. So for the people who don't have the passports, they're standing and waiting in these lines.
I check every single day. There's no appointments.
Yeah. Here's another woman who says she's been getting up early, hoping to get an online appointment.
I just went online early and tried to get it.
And I'm going to go online on Thursday morning at 5 in the morning.
Yikes.
And hopefully get an appointment, I hope.
Yeah, I think if you wait a couple months and you have a passport, you'll be just fine. You'll be able to get one of those driver's licenses. 542, up to the Bronx, where prayers have been answered at an all-girls Catholic high school there, Princeton High. You remember I told you the story? They were in jeopardy of closing at the end of this year, but because the archdiocese just didn't have the money to keep the school open. There was also a problem with low enrollment. But what took place in the last couple of weeks is sort of amazing. A major benefactor has come forward to save the school, and the Attorney General, Letitia James, brokered this deal between Princeton High and Bally's Foundation, the people, who run the casino. So they're going to pay to keep this school open. And you can imagine how excited students were at the school when they heard about this yesterday.
God works in mysterious ways, and if Bally's was the way, we're more than happy to take it.
The school board of trustees had cited declining enrollment, finances, aging infrastructure for the decision to close the school. But now the school that's in this beautiful campus in Throgsneck, that's been there since 1947, in a mansion, sits on the water. It'll stay open. The Bally's Foundation agreed to buy the property for about $8 million from the Sisters of Divine Compassion, then lease it back to the school for $1 a year for the next 25 years.
Because it's more than just a school. It's a family, and it grows people into strong young women.
I just cried because it's like we're home, and this is going to be our home.
Yeah, nice job done by Bally's. Also, they're going to commit another $1 million to help with much-needed renovations. In fact, the chairman of Bally's issuing a statement yesterday saying that our commitment to Preston, the high school, is not about business, but they say it's just about what's doing something right for the community. 544. The search continues continues for a student from Princeton University who's been reported missing. Lauren Blackburn is a 23-year-old undergrad who was last seen on campus over the weekend. So far, authorities have focused along Carnegie Lake, which sits very close to the main campus of Princeton University. Boats belonging to the Hamilton Rescue, they were on the water yesterday. They were using sonar to search the bottom of the lake. They did not tell us what brought them to the lake, but police honing in on the lake after Blackburn's phone was traced into the area. So they're just not sure. The university says Blackburn was last seen near the Firestone Library. And people on campus say, yeah, this makes them uneasy.
Well, I mean, it's disturbing, obviously, anytime someone goes missing and you don't know where they are. I hope that he just turns up. I hope maybe he took a trip somewhere and forgot to tell some people.
And he's a big guy, so he'd be hard to miss on campus. He's 23 years old, 6'2". He was studying at Princeton with the aid of the Gates Scholarship, which pays tuition for minority students from low-income families. So search boats, we're being told, could be put back on Carnegie Lake sometime this afternoon as they search for this 23-year-old. 5:45. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk, and here's Justin Allen.
Thank you, Noel Malady. We'll start here on the diamond out in Queens. Queens, I should say.
On Queens?
Francisco Lindor. That happens anytime I talk about the Mets winning a baseball game, Noel Malady.
It's hard for you to spit that out.
I know. Lindor had 3 hits, including an RBI single, and the Mets defeated the Phillies 5-1 for this.
I'm Dominic Carter.
No, you can't do Okay. I mean, Louie, my God.
I'm Dominic Carter.
At 5:46 a.m., I might as well be Dominic Carter. How about that? Mark Vientos delivered an early RBI double in his return to the lineup, and Pete Alonso also had a run-scoring double for the Mets, who improved to 11-1 at home. They're tied for the best record in the majors at 17-7 overall. They opened a 4-game lead over the second-place Phillies in the NL East. Griffin Canning gave up 7 hits in 5 innings, but limited the Phils to 1 run and won his 3rd straight start. He struck out 5 and walked 1. 4 relievers combined for 4 innings of 1-hit ball to close it out for the Mets. Mets starters have gone 11 games without giving up a home run, the team's longest streak since April of 2014. They haven't yielded a long ball in 12 home games this year, the longest stretch to begin a season in franchise history. Overall, the starters have served up only 5 dingers, the fewest in the majors this season. New York will go for a 3-game sweep of its NL East rival in this afternoon series finale, scheduled for a 1:10 p.m. first pitch. The lefty David Peterson will start for the Mets. In Cleveland, the Yankees dropped their second consecutive game against the Guardians, losing 3-2, and in the process dropping the series after Ben Rice homered on the first pitch of the game for New York. Not much else came from the Yankees' bats, except for Aaron Judge. He went 4 for 4 with 3 singles and a double, raising his major league leading average to .411 with his 12th career 4-hit game. Judge has also reached base, in 20 straight games. Starter Will Warren held the Guardians to 1 hit and led 2-0 after 5 innings before allowing 2 singles to start the 6th and being replaced. Up next for the Yanks, a matinee today to complete the series. First pitch is scheduled for 1:10 p.m. from Cleveland, with the lefty Carlos Rodon set to start. And to the NHL, the Devils dropped Game 2 of their first-round playoff series against the Hurricanes. The final score 3-1 from Carolina, as the Devs now find themselves in a 2-0 series hole. Jesper Bratt scored the Devils' lone goal, while Jacob Markstrom finished with 25 saves for New Jersey. The series now shifts north to Newark for Game 3 come Friday night. That is your Sports Know, man. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:50. Former Congressman George Santos says he's preparing for life in prison. Ahead of his criminal sentencing, which will come on Friday, Santos spoke with New York One, saying when it comes to the nearly $500,000 he owes in restitution, he says right now he's unable to pay anything.
I've seen better days. It's been sobering reality. As of today, right now, I am unable to pay anything. I don't know if that's going to change within the next 24 to 48 hours prior to sentencing, because I am still working on trying to make some kind of meaningful attempt at restitution, because it's my obligation.
What happened to all that Cameo money? Didn't he tell us he was one of the biggest people on Cameo? That you would think he'd have some money from that. And doesn't he have that podcast he's told us that was incredibly successful? Santos says he has no plans, by the way, to ask President Trump for a pardon.
I have not. I believe in the process. I believe that also the president is aware of my situation. I don't think I need to petition him. If he feels like I am worthy of a commutation or of clemency or whatever the case is, right? He can make that decision without me having to put a spectacle on television like most people are doing right now.
Federal prosecutors are now seeking an 87-month prison sentence, which is more than 7 years for Santos. U.S. attorneys wrote to the judge arguing that Santos's actions cry out of a significant prison sentence, and they cited some social media posts that suggest, they say, Santos feels no remorse for taking that campaign money and spending it on himself. Now, he says that's not true.
And I think it's so preposterous for the prosecutors to take social media tweets and try to depict and create a narrative.
Now, he says, of course, like anybody would be, by the way, he is worried about how he'll navigate life in prison.
Preferably in protective custody, because I do fear for my safety. I'm not somebody who is, I didn't grow up in an environment where I had to fend for myself.
Well, either way, he's going to end up in prison. Now, the question is just how long he'll be there. That sentencing coming on Friday. The Nassau County Police Department announcing it'll be providing updated information on a 1997 homicide investigation. The press briefing is today, and it is regarding the dismembered remains of a victim only known as Peaches. The female victim is called that because of a tattoo she had. The woman's chest was found in a container in a wooded area of Hempstead Lake Park in June of 1997. Other remains were found along Ocean Parkway in 2011. FBI data also says that the DNA links Peaches to a toddler who was found buried on Gilgo Beach. Now, of course, is this all connected to the Gilgo Beach murders? We do not know. This press conference taking place at 11 a.m. this morning at the Nassau County Police headquarters in Mineola. And as soon as, of course, we have that information, we'll pass it on to you. New York City drivers, mass transit riders reacting after the deadline to shut down congestion pricing on Sunday was extended once again.
What I hear is like they're going to fight it in the court. Trump wanted to shut it down. So I guess they're going to drag it out as long as they can, right? In the meantime, they're still going to charge everybody.
Because of stuff going on in the government.
They keep saying it, but they ain't doing it.
Governor Hochul has said she will not turn off those cameras. This time, the Department of Transportation has pushed the deadline to May 21st. This coming from the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy. That is, New Yorkers, some of them anyway, have warmed up to congestion pricing.
They're just taking the money, put it in their pocket, and they're raising everything just to put it in their pocket. We're not getting nothing out of it. The train runs the same, the bus runs the same, the streets are the same, but their pockets are more bigger than ours.
They should give it a year and then use that as a full year to determine when to disconnect it, but changing the deadline is ridiculous.
We all know what it's all about. It's all about, the dollar. Unfortunately, we all have to deal with that. There's nobody that I know of is doing it from the goodness of their heart. Maybe the Pope, but he's passed. God bless him.
Yeah, so now we have this deadline of May 28th. We'll see what happens then. 5:54. Mayor Adams reacting to a Manhattan judge temporarily blocking his administration from reopening an ICE office at Rikers Island. Adams says he'll let the case play out in court and hinted that New Yorkers should favor his position.
You know what everyday people want? They want dangerous people off their street. That's who I hear. And so the first deputy mayor is dealing with that.
The judge gave the order after the city council sued Mayor Adams, with the court case expected to be heard as soon as Friday.
This case is in court. I'm not going to do anything to get in the way of that. Let the first deputy mayor and the court plays out. And whatever way it goes, I'm going to follow the rule.
Let's go up to the Bronx. We have some additional information revealed about that 4-year-old girl who was found inside a Wakefield apartment with her dead mother and brother. So this is this crazy story. We don't know all the details yet, but the mother, they say there's nothing suspicious here. In other words, they're not looking for anybody, but the 4-year-old was found in this apartment. She may have been in there for 2 weeks with her dead mother and dead brother by her side. And they didn't find her until they did a wellness check over the weekend. And so how did this 4-year-old survive? Well, now they figured out that she found chocolate around the apartment and ate that over the course of the 2 weeks to keep herself alive. We also found out that authorities say the Administration for Children's Services had visited the home earlier in the week. Now, how's that possible? How'd they miss the fact that a 4-year-old was in the house with 2 dead bodies? Clearly, nobody had checked. So now an investigation going on there. Thank God that 4-year-old is alive to tell her story. 556 bears are coming out of hibernation. One was spotted through Hamilton Township in New Jersey yesterday. Nicholas Hoffman says he was on his driveway when he spotted the bear, and he says, first he was a little nervous, and then he thought, well, this is kind of cool.
I kind of looked left. We have a few bigger black dogs in our neighborhood, so I kind of took a double take, realized it was a bear. Take a video, because no one's going to believe me. So.
Not run for your life?
I made sure my dog was inside, but I took the video first.
Now, Hamilton's Mayor Jeff Martin says, you should just stay away from these bears. Don't stop to video them.
Glad that residents reported it. We wanted to keep everybody safe in town. And glad that it's found its way out of town now into hopefully a nice environment.
Yeah, they didn't have to shoot the bear or anything because it just walked out of town. There have been bear sightings in nearby towns, West Windsor, surrounding areas. It is that time of year. We'll get a lot of these stories in the coming weeks. And the mayor of Hamilton has a suggestion for those who run into a bear in the coming days.
Glad that residents reported it. We wanted to keep everybody safe in town. And glad that it's found its way out of town now into hopefully a nice environment.
I think that was the same thing he said. But he basically said, just, if you see a bear, you should probably walk inside and not take your camera out and take video of it.